The views and opinions expressed in this broadcast are those of the host/guest and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of any of BXR entities and those they represent.
Unmute.
I mean,
talking for 10 minutes. He gonna say unmute 10 minutes later. We
Friday. We do this every Friday.
We do. Welcome to the Artist Exchange Radio Show with me, your host Nate. We have a special person today.
You were trying. Wait a minute, a special. You had to pause for a minute. It is Baltimore's favorite gay auntie, Miss Bleu Waters, coming to you live and direct. And I'm here with my my drug dealer nephew.
You can't take some black people nowhere.
I am living for this look. You got the shades on and the
When I don't have my glasses, I was rushing out this morning, and such. And when I don't have my eyeglasses on, I have to put shades on because my eyes be so sensitive. So I'm here.
You must got an admirer that's following us because you came done. You came giving us Big Daddy Kane. Now,
out of control.
Now, I just want to know, does Big Daddy have a cane? Or
you would know. You would know.
I would not know.
You would know.
I would not.
You look like the type that would know.
I look like.
But we have today. I wanted to do something different because Bleu is with us, and he may be with us, for an extended period of time. There was a project that Bleu was supposed to be working on with me, but he didn't have the time to be available because he's, a performer and all, and he be out on these streets doing his due diligence.
You tried it.
So there was a project that I was working on, and we're not going to talk about it because I don't want to jinx it because I'm in a new space. Literally, I'm in a new space. I'll be talking more about this space next week once everything is up and running. Next week we'll have on a couple of the models and maybe Sharon Nixon of Baltimore Fashion Week because that Saturday is the first day of Baltimore Fashion Week, and it's opening up with an Alice in Wonderland themed award ceremony for 6 deserving individuals, the Impact Awards, which I am the recipient of one.
Yes, congratulations.
Thank you. I mean, it happened years ago. You wasn't there. But we're doing it this year. It'll be at Baltimore Fashion Week will be mostly at Center Stage. We have that Tuesday, I believe the 16th, will be at Be More Scrap doing a live interview with the owner of Be More Scrap, Ms. Nancy. And then I believe Thursday will be at a restaurant. But Saturday it opens up with the gala, the Impact Awards, and I'll be there. Should come. It's all going to a great cause. And what else? Yeah, so we'll have that next Friday, but I'm not finished with the space yet. but I've been working. That's why I said earlier before we went on, it does not feel like Friday because I feel like I've been moving for a whole week, and I'm tired. Um, I think I hurt my Achilles heel,
Mm.
even though I had two strong, able-bodied men moving my furniture today.
Mm.
Well, one man and one young man. I'm not gonna give him the man charge just yet. But yeah, it's been a full week. How's your week been?
My week has been extremely, extremely busy and hot.
Yes.
Extremely busy and hot. I don't think I can get any darker. Almost invisible. I definitely felt like I crossed over a few times this week because it was too hot for me. I just can't take this heat. Now, when I was younger, I could take the summer. Summer was my favorite because we could get out of school, we could stay out all night long, we could do what we want to do. But now I'm longing for fall. I'm longing for winter. I'll eat my three favorite seasons: fall, spring, winter. But
I can't do this.
Summer.
I'm not a heat-driven person. I can't do it. I think I'm reversing. I'm getting lighter because I'm avoiding the sun by all means, and I try to get out just so I can get my vitamin D. But
Well, I do not have any shortage of vitamin D. I have, I've gotten my full fill of vitamin D. Holla at your auntie.
Anyway, I'm not the heat type of person, especially when it's just heat. It's no breeze, it's no like variations, it's just heat. Yesterday, and it'd be like you be sitting still. And even if you come into a cool environment, it takes your body a minute to cool off. And I don't have any hair, so it's like I have to either wear hats or I've been wearing like a do-rag just so my head can it can catch the sweat from my head. I do not do heat. Anybody who knows me knows I like to sit in the shade. I prefer AC. Yeah, that's who I am. I'm a fall, spring person myself.
Yes,
But I
yes,
can't
I
do
can't do it. Can't do it at all. Don't want to do it. I don't want to do anything in the sun. When they want to go into the park and do cookouts and things of that nature, I am the person that's going to say, I'm going to show up. But chances are I'm showing up when the sun goes down. The party is almost over. The food is all gone. You don't even have to worry about setting me a plate to the side. I'm going already eating something before I got there. Because guess what? I don't want any of the bugs on me. I don't even like to wear shorts. I don't like mosquitoes. I don't like bugs. I don't like spiders. None of those things.
Yeah, I love when cause I typically, because I'm a spring baby, I feel most comfortable. So I start cheating and wearing my shorts and my toes out earlier than normal than you should. So I enjoy wearing all of that. I don't have to wear anything, to be honest with you.
Now in the spring and the fall, I'm okay with that. In the spring and the fall, I can wear shorts. I can get damn near naked in the spring and the fall. But summer, no. Oh no. Mm-mm. I can't do this. I can't do this heat. I'm gonna stay right in the house under my AC. And with all that's going on out there in the world now, the best place is in a lovely house.
It's definitely that type of weather where you don't want to do anything. I had got off work yesterday and I didn't have anything to move yesterday, so I moved it today. But I went in the house and it probably was like 2 something, and the outside did not see me till 8 o'clock this morning. Like it just, and when I come home, especially when it's hot outside, you can tell I'm home because my clothes are all by the front door. And I go straight to the restroom, my bathroom, turn on the shower, and cool my body off with a nice long shower. And I get in that bed and that AC, BGE just gonna have to bless my soul because that AC will be on
All day. all day. I have my heat. I have my AC on, and I have my ceiling fans on, and I
Mm-hmm.
have a floor fan on. I need
Mm-hmm.
it to be damn near Arctic cold for me. I
Yes.
I just need it to be cool. I need to hit my skin. And another thing is because in the summertime I don't. First of all, I'm allergic to clothing, so I don't like clothes in
Yeah.
any season. So whenever I come home, I think, and I don't know, I think with adulthood and childhood, that was a different story. But as an adult, when you come home, you just peel out of everything and just running
Everything.
around your own house with no one there is, oh, that's heaven for me. So
Mm.
I need to peel. In the summertime, it feels like you got to peel off your skin because
Yeah.
without good AC, shit.
It's just not it's uncalled for. Like it's hot for no reason.
I could not do what we did when we were growing up. If I had one of those what is it, Dollar General fans, the ones that you would put in the window, oh, that would drive me fucking crazy. I can't have, oh no. Woo, I need some air.
See, I have one of those in my bathroom because I don't want the air on in my bathroom because it just your body temperature drops when you get into, and I like really hot baths or a hot shower. So you gotta regulate your temperature a little bit more. And then I don't want to like it be hot or cold when I get out the shower, and then I go into the AC in my room. Like I don't, so I keep it like cool in my bathroom, but in my bedroom. Last summer, I had to get my doctor was nervous because I would go normally when I have a doctor's appointment, I don't schedule anything else for that day. And I like to go early in the morning. And
Mhm.
I'll go, and two times I went, my temperature was so low because she thought I was anemic because my ceiling, my AC unit is here, my
Wait
bed
a
is
minute.
here. And I
Mm.
just like I like it. If I can't roll up into my sheets cold, it ain't cold enough.
That's and so for me, the shower. I do not like hot showers. It has to be warm. I mean, enough of a stink. And then at the end,
I want to
actually, for
burn that
me,
dirt off.
oh no, I'm a loofah and I'm a scrub, but I'm not going to burn anything off. Again, I told you I'm allergic to anything that reminds me of what it may be like in hell. So I don't want any any of that.
I
And
grew
at
up in
the
a
end,
house full of women, and that's all they do is hot baths that's boiling hot, and I just got used to it.
I mean, yeah, trust me, I get it. But at the end of my shower, I always have to run cool water. I always rinse off in
Mhm.
cold water. But which is why my black ass is always ashy because I need to use that Crisco on my skin because I will definitely put on some cold water at the end to rinse off. It's just I like the feeling of being refreshed. I love that feeling. And so
I had
and
to take a cold shower one day, and when I say I can't do it,
mm,
mm-mm. I need it to be boiling hot. You know, it's so
especially
hot where everything's steaming up in the window.
especially for me when it's in the morning and at the time that I have to get up in the morning,
Mm,
it has
that's
to
the
be
best time.
a cold shower because I
Mm-mm.
will I
What
no
type of nigga
uh-uh.
are you? What where you must be from the Ivory Coast, because I'm not from there. Mm-mm.
I'm where the good melanin is at. Good melanin.
I like, and first of all, I love taking a bath in the morning. It's my like go to like relaxer when I want to have a great day and I know it's gonna be
Hmm.
stressful. I love to take a bath in the morning, and I like my water so hot. You have to put your toe in first, and you have to slowly sit down, and you feel it feel like it's burning the dirt off of you.
Oh
Layer by layer.
no.
Oh, I love.
Oh
It's horrible.
no.
Now I'm not suggesting that for anybody because it's horrible on your skin, but I stay with shea butter, and I sometimes mix a little Vaseline in it just to rehydrate my skin once I get out. But I love when you gotta like tiptoe and then you gotta hold the sides of the tub and like sit down really slow and hold yourself and like submerge. I
Yeah,
don't
I
know.
do not.
I love it.
I do not want the tub. And so, and another. This is crazy. If I'm going to take a shower, if I'm going to take a bath, I'm gonna take a shower first
Mm-hmm.
because I like to. I don't. I want to be clean when I'm soaking. Because I only use the bathroom when I'm trying to do my waiting to exhale moment. When you had the candles around the tub, and you turn the lights down, and you have your little wine or champagne on the side.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it may be some Long Island iced tea, but and you have your good 90s R&B on, Faith Evans, Mary J. Blige, Banji music, Banji. And for me, that's how it can't be anything where I'm gonna put my ass in it and then I'm gonna scream and jump back out. That's happened to me
No,
several times.
it just feels like I don't know why I love it so much, but I just love sitting in a hot bath, and then I normally take my shower afterwards, because I just to rinse everything off, and
See,
I
I
get
like
my
to.
loofah.
I wanna, and especially when for me in the bath because I like to have my oils and I like to smell like Mother Earth when I come out of that bath.
Mm-hmm.
See, when I get in the bed with my significant other or
With
a
our
low,
significant other.
excuse me,
I said
this
our.
thing on.
It's a
Monty, check it. Something's wrong with this connection. I could have sworn he said hour, and I
I
know
said our. Ask
that
him.
is not the case.
We was gonna reveal it on the show. He was gonna
Oh,
come downstairs, but see, you just ruined it,
y'all was gonna have what, a gender reveal?
baby.
Oh, okay. Because I swear, well, if that's the case, let me let you know something. He enjoys when I'm smelling like Mother Earth next to him. So if you're going to if
He
you're
told me
going to
you
be the
be
side
trying. He told me
piece,
you be trying to smell like Ian Van Zant. He told me that, but he don't really. That's not him.
mm-mm, I don't want to smell like Ayana Vincent. I want to smell like Iman,
Mm-mm.
African goddess. That's what he calls me actually. Calls me his
Wow.
calls me his African goddess.
Okay,
Mhm.
that's cute. That's cute.
It is.
But
It is.
anyway, today's topic is
Wait, Jesus ain't say that.
Do I detect a little gel in your pudding?
I said that to somebody and they were off. They was like, "Who the fuck are you talking to?" But today's topic is how I learned to tie a tie.
Mm,
And unfortunately, a few times throughout my adult life,
mhm,
a certain scenario has come up. I'll be in the restroom and somebody else come in the restroom and I can see they having trouble tying their tie. This young man was, I believe um, he was applying for school. He was coming for his interview, and I was in the restroom, and he was really, I could tell he was. I'm not good at interviews. I'm always rushing, always hot,
mhm,
always overheated. But I could see he was a little frustrated, and him not being able to get his tie was making it worse for him. And I asked him, I said, "Do you know how to tie your tie?" And he didn't. And this scenario has come up several times
mhm,
throughout my adult life where I've met younger guys and a couple older guys that did not know how to tie their tie. It is for me, I don't know why that represents like a rite of passage for me, and not an official one, but like one of the steps. I just
mhm,
always thought that was something that was supposed to be done. I remember watching it on the Cosby Show and wanting to, like, when he was helping Theo learn how to tie his bow tie, and I was
mhm,
like, oh, I wanna learn how to tie a bow tie. And I didn't grow up with my dad. My dad died when I was really young, and I didn't really, you know, women did, the women in my family, they ain't they boys that wore ties and shit unless they was going to court and shit.
mm.
But they ain't
Damn.
had no ties. They typically didn't have ties on when they went to court. They had their jumpsuits on when
Mm,
they in their shackles, so they didn't really need the
mm,
tie. Uh, but
mm.
I
I can
remember
imagine.
their ties, if you bought a nice tie, they used to come with these little cards that gave you like step-by-step how to tie a tie. And that's really how I learned how to tie a tie. Because I would have been in clip-on ties for the rest of my life had I not self-taught myself. And I always felt like cheated out the experience because I always saw other people showing their sons how to tie a tie. And it's not anything that I feel like I missed out on something so monumental, but it was a small thing. And I see the frustration in other guys' face when they don't know how to do it or they don't, typically know how to do it. And it's an uneasy thing because a guy is not going to necessarily ask you, can you help me tie this tie? And they'll
Right.
sit in the mirror like for minutes. And when I see it, I normally jump on it. And I saw all these videos of somebody, doing it when they're prepared for this. And I was like, that's such a, you know, I wonder for other people, is it a big deal to learn how to tie a tie? So I'll ask you, like Blue, who taught you how to tie a tie?
Well,
I don't see you in ties though. Do you wear ties?
I do. I do. I don't wear them appropriately, but I definitely wear ties. I've always found some artistic way of wearing my ties. But I learned how to tie a tie actually from my grandfather.
Okay.
Unfortunately, my father was DC. He died when I was an adolescent. But I grew up as a Jehovah's Witness, and so I was used to clip-on ties. And I remember it as a transition from pre-adolescence into adolescence. That's when I want to say I probably was preparing for the Kingdom Hall.
Middle school?
And no, I was preparing for the Kingdom Hall.
That was in
And
that age range, like middle school age.
yep. And he had a tie and he was like, come in, and he showed me how to tie the tie. And that was a bonding moment for us. So I could absolutely understand how it would be significant for, young men to have their father show them something. And it is symbolic. It is like a rites of passage. Because I do remember it being kind of a special moment because, it was, we were talking and he was showing me and he was really explaining how to do the loops and the knot itself. And that was something that I held on to. And to this day, I've always tied the tie the way that he showed me how to. Now, I've learned some other tricks, other tying tricks, but yeah, he was the one who showed me how to do it. And oddly enough, that was the closest that him and I had ever been because he was I wouldn't say a man's man, but he was the stereotypical man, He didn't say much. He was a very strong figure. He didn't have to say much, when he did speak, you heard him. Because he had a very booming voice. It was really deep, it was really strong. He worked with his hands all his life. He did naval work, and so he was, and he liked his beer and his vodka and his wrestling. So we were actually polar opposites because I was into art and I was into music and I wanted to be Diana Ross and Patti LaBelle at the same time. So him and I was
nothing in common.
Nothing, but when I tied the tie down, after he showed me how to tie the tie, what I did with that tie, what I did was it became a headband, it became everything. But he showed me initially how to tie a tie.
It's very interesting because it makes me feel like, well, for me, I'll speak about my story. Like I just felt like people just thought I already knew how to do things, or I didn't need any help because I was very mature for a young person, but I always looked so much younger. But I think people just was like, "Oh, Nate, get it," they just thought I was too. And family members have said you were smart. We didn't think you needed our help. Like, what could we do? And my family was really women heavy. And the guys were there, but they were like in and out. They wasn't really consistently there every day. And it just was, it was difficult. I'll never forget one of my mother's cousins, her husband, we was at a family funeral, and I had a suit on. It was a brand new suit. I had just wore it for my 5th grade graduation. And he was like, he always picked at me whenever he saw me. And he was like, man, come on, you gotta wear that suit correctly. And if you buy a nice suit, it normally has a thread through the shoulder and like around the wrist. And he was like, man, you gotta cut that off. So he like snipped it off, and like by that time, I really wanted to learn how to tie a tie. And I remember him tying my tie for me. But it was so fast because we was like in the procession to go inside of the funeral. And he did it so fast. And it was, when I say I went home that summer and I practiced tying a tie, and I was looking at that little ass card that came with it. It was no YouTube then, none of that, where you could go and learn that way. I literally learned how to tie a tie watching this damn little card that it was like a little trifold card.
Yeah, that
like
card.
6 different. It was this small.
It was horrible. And if you learned how to, I mean, it was that card. If you learned how to tie a tie from that, I feel for you, because that was a horrible. I saw that card and it was horrible.
I did. That's really learned. I had to learn proportions and all that, but I think I got that over time. But I refused to go into middle school not knowing how to tie a tie, because I didn't have a regular uniform in middle school. We just had a dress code. So I was like, I cannot, but we had to wear a tie. And I was like, I cannot go to middle school wearing this clip-on tie. Because my mother had found they have adult clip-on ties. They have adult clip-on bow ties. And I was like, I cannot go
Now that's the one that I want to learn how to do. I actually want to learn how to tie a bow tie. But I probably would never. I would probably never ever wear a bow tie. I think this is so cheesy when I see people with bow ties for some strange reason.
You would. I think you would if you knew how to tie it. I think you would wear it more. Because I learned how to tie. I know how to. When I tell you I practice, I know how to make a regular tie into a bow tie. That's how much I practice, and I always practice. Like I literally have, actually Baltimore Fashion Week, I am doing a line of ties, but they're a little bit different than the regular ties. But they are really, I just love to. I have over 400 ties, and it was just something about tie. And you don't wear those ties every day, but I just
for me,
wear them.
When I started doing so what got me into head wraps was not Erykah Badu. I was into head wraps way before Erykah Badu. I was into head wraps. I grew up listening to like Sade, and so I started listening to a lot of African music, and I would like the garbs that they would put on. And one of the things that I really liked was head wraps. And so I would take my ties and I would wrap them around my head wrap. So I would infuse them or find some sort of creative way of putting them with my head wraps and having a tie with my outfit as well. But that was something I did because I always felt like it was a part of me being myself. My method of expression has nothing to do with my sexuality. It has everything to do with how I'm feeling. And so when I would dress up, I felt like putting these clothes on because they were making me feel good. And believe it or not, when I was younger, I didn't like colors. The only color that I liked to wear was black and brown. Oh my goodness. It wasn't until I was much older that I actually started to wear
no burgundy. No burgundy.
No burgundy. No burgundy. No burgundy. No blues, no yellows, no reds.
That was later.
That was much, much later. None of this, no eyeshadow. This eyeshadow happened in college. But the lip gloss happened in middle school. It wasn't lip gloss. It wasn't lip gloss then, it was Vaseline. I just, we would just scoop it out.
It's just, I've had this fascination with ties growing up. I remember once I did get to middle school, I was one of the only ones that knew how to tie a tie. So I think
it was go to a Catholic school?
Yeah, but none of the boys, all the boys wore clip-ons. You know how mad I was for practice on that summer, and these boys came in there with clipboard ties on. But it became like my way of rebelling a little bit because I didn't have any other way. I had to wear, a dress code. I was in school all year, all day. I literally went to school all year long, all day long, and I had no other expression. So I would tie two ties together, and I was getting in trouble for ties. Mama said, "If you get in trouble for wearing a fucking tie the wrong way again." Like she just got tired of them calling her about this, but that was the only thing that could differentiate yourself. That idea of the Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, him wearing his jacket inside out to just be different from everybody. I think that was my connection with ties, but it ultimately was just my expression. Bleu is somebody that's helping me with that project that I'm doing, but it was my way of kind of teaching myself and having to do things for myself that the women around me didn't probably think of or would think that was something that I really wanted to learn how to do. And I you said you was looking at certain people, but I loved I think it was that Simply the Best video came out with Tina Turner, and she had that white shirt on with them jeans, and that's how I looked throughout my whole adolescence. From middle school up into high school, I would wear. They started calling me Boys the Men because I would wear blazers and ties and jeans. That's really where that came.
But that was the style. That was that era style.
Yeah.
When it came out, everybody was trying to get into the vest. A vest with a tie on and your pants, your shirt hanging outside your pants, but you still had this kind of preppy look about yourself.
Yeah. They used to call me Nathan from Boys the Men. That's because his name is Nathaniel. So I was Nate from Boys the Men. But all that stemmed back. So today's topic is how I learned how to tie a tie, and it's befitting because it was really a part of the program. And like I said, I'm doing Baltimore Fashion Week this year, and I didn't even realize that I had incorporated ties into it because it just became a part of my just repertoire. And I haven't been wearing ties a lot lately. One, because we've been in the house for 2 fucking years. Where am I wear a tie to? But whenever I get a chance to wear one, I don't care how hot it is, I'm going to wear a tie. I like to pin them up and it look like it's perpetually blowing in the wind. It's just a crazy thing that just evolved in me. But it was interesting in me deciding today's topic. It was because I was just in the bathroom with a young man and he was having trouble tying his tie. And I was like, is this something that people don't think of? Like, especially a lot of single moms. And I know it's already tough being a single mom or, even being a single dad. I know it's just something that people just don't think of if it's not part of their life. And like I said, go ahead.
I think it has more to do with what our parents perceived as what is it? A sign of maturity, or a sign of progress. Our parent, at least mine. I can't speak for anyone else's, but I do know that my mother, she was very heavy on education and appearance. And as I got older, she wanted me to kind of, merge into the workforce without having that struggle of, I'm trying to, really, really, really overcompensate. And so she taught me the things that they value, appearance, education, those things. I don't think that in this generation, those things are as valued because you don't need those things to make an impact. At least it appears you don't. I remember going to for me growing up, going on an interview, you had to have on, casual dress attire, and you can go to an interview with jeans and flip flops, and it's normal.
The same thing with funerals. There were we value dressing up, but it's not really an option. anymore. It's not the main option.
But is that really a bad thing? I don't believe that is necessarily a bad thing. I think that people's understanding of themselves and of how they identify has evolved. You know, some people may say, well, it's evolved, but in reality, I believe.
I think I really, because and the only reason why I say it is because I think putting on a suit and tie gave you a certain level of confidence. And then certain environments called for that. Like you said, right now, it doesn't. Like for me to go to a funeral and see most of the men with polos and jeans on, it does something to me. And I don't know what it is. And I don't typically wear suits and ties anymore. I really have embraced like Africanism in terms of the clothing and the attire. So I dress up in those types of garbs. But it just is weird to me that most and grown men, young men, go, it started with them wearing those rest in peace shirts. And then I was like, okay, you can wear that to the viewing, but don't wear that to the funeral. And I sounded like that old person in church telling people what to wear. But it just is a certain level of dignity that I think we should still hold on to. That doesn't mean anything beyond just that dignity and confidence.
But who set that standard? And I think that that's what we're seeing young people are kind of rebelling against, is that the social norms have been constructed by individuals that don't look like them. And what happens is that then even the education, it doesn't up like one of my biggest issues is that as my profession, the individuals that they pay a lot of respect to, give a lot of kudos to, did not look like me. And the rules, the policies, the things that they put in place did not take people that look like me into consideration. And I feel like the young people today, when it comes to the way that they wear their clothes, I believe that they're absolutely revolutionary in their opposition and their defiance, because the stuff that we did was really oppressive. You know, we wore a tie, and I know that you may say, that was us having a standard, but that was us trying to compete with individuals. And so we did those things to be seen as equals. But I think with this generation, I think their mindset is that, I don't know, we should probably have someone from, a panel of youth to have a conversation, just pick their mind to see what they actually think. But I believe that the things that they saw us do was very oppressive, and it suppressed their abilities to be themselves, which is why they really lash out.
I get that too. I get that to a certain degree, but like in my generation, I felt like there was a really steep decline in doing that. Like I had a mother who made my clothes and put me in, like I had, and even stuff that she did was like pushing the envelope, because I had a suit every Easter. I had a leather outfit every Easter. I had a short set.
You had a leather outfit.
A leather outfit.
In the spring?
It was the 80s.
Can I tell you something?
It was the 80s.
Poor Kyle. Come on now. And oh Lord, why did she make you a leather outfit?
It was like leather pants, and then I would have it on a shirt. And
what in the biker club was she thinking?
It looks slick. I think she really liked Eddie Murphy. I think that's what it probably was. I had to set, because my little sister, she would then get the hand-me-down in terms of she would turn those pants into a skirt for her. Mm-hmm. And I think my mother liked leather.
My mom was a seamstress as well. I think that was something that I don't know. All of my aunts were seamstress. Mm-hmm. My mother, she could sew. She could what is it? Macrame. She could do all of those things. Mm-hmm. And prior to her passing, I wanted her to teach me how to do it because I was envious of that gift. I definitely wanted to learn how to sew because in my mind, I never liked to wear, I never liked seeing people in ordinary clothes. I've always liked to be in costume. So, and things that are flowing and stuff of that nature, because that embodied my personality. And so I've never been able to get the things that I want because they don't sell at, they don't have those in stores. And the stores that they do have them in, they're actual costume stores. But what my mom would do was she would take outfits, she would look at a costume and she would create an outfit out of a costume. And
Yeah.
so she would make, she would always have capes and, you know, uh, skirts and wonderful, beautifully patterned dresses and things. She could do excellent bead work, all of this stuff. And I'm like, Mom, please teach me how to do these things.
That's what I think is coming back. So let's take a commercial break. I think Monty has to take a PP break. We'll be right back in just a few moments.
Got a TT.
The Artist Exchange Radio Show only on BeExposedRadio.com.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
It's just being 30 seconds.
What happened?
Just a 30 seconds. Welcome back. As you can see, that was a snippet of Baltimore Fashion Week. The 13th, we open up with the Impact Awards. The 15th, we have the Off the Rack series with myself. Actually, we'll have an actual Baltimore Raven, Mr. Bateman, Rashad Bateman. He'll be opening up the show on August. My bodies were like August the 15th. So come on out. Baltimore Fashion Week's creator and organizer, Sharon Nixon, will also be ripping the runway that day too. That Tuesday,
Yes.
we'll be meeting with Scrap Be More. It's like a thrift store or secondhand store for art supplies. For artists, we know how much things cost. For parents who have to do projects with students, it's a great space to go and either create a hobby, I said habit, because it is a hobby, or to, be able to afford one that you already have, especially if you're just starting out as a jewelry designer, as a visual artist. They have tons of fabric, tons of yarn, beads, the galore, all those things, art supplies, visual art supplies. Get out to that store. Scrap Be More is down on Bar Street, right in Pigtown, right off of Washington Boulevard. So Tuesday we'll be there. Thursday we'll have a meet and greet. I believe Wednesday we're doing interviews with designers and models. I don't know what's happening. I think Friday is another meet and greet. And then Saturday there's a day of rest for the 7-day Adventist. And then on Sunday, we have the main show with our designer, all at center stage. Come on, join us. Go to fashionumbrella.org. Back to the conversation at hand. But those things, those expressions, kind of stemming away a little bit from how I learned how to tie a tie. We really have to. So this has probably happened to me tons of times when I was in a bathroom, and I hate to keep saying it because it sounds real creepy, but tying someone's tie. But also this summer, I worked with all girls, all young ladies, high school age girls, and a jewelry making. It was actually their job because they were working through Youth Works, but teaching them how to make jewelry and just understanding confidence level and and as we were speaking before we left, just that change of time in terms of it being another generation coming and being very rebellious of change and what was and trying to make it something else. But they're using the same things that we had and just remixing it. It's not, you can't recreate the wheel at this point. All you can do is refashion it or redesign it in many ways. And there's some levels of innovation, but it's definitely being sourced from things that was. And just the idea of for me, it's I still hold tight to some of those standards and traditions. Like if you go to a funeral, you go dress a certain way. If you go to a wedding, you go dress a certain way. If you go into a graduation, you go dress a certain way. And the 20-somethings, early 30-somethings, teens, is just letting it all hang out. And I'm all for it, but in the proper place. And I think a lot of that is because there's been an absence of mentorship and there's been an absence of healthy family units where traditions are being passed down. I see some of them as very oppressive, but I see a lot of them as standards. And there's nothing wrong with having a dress code for a funeral. And I'm only saying this because I've seen some weird and wild stuff being brought into a sanctuary.
But I think that, again, I think those standards were created by oppressive individuals. And I think that to me, I think that was probably my biggest issue, is that I saw it as oppressive. Mm-hmm. To this point, even today, I don't like to wear suits because it was oppressive and it was like a uniform for church. And to me, people got caught up in the uniform instead of the actual, the whole reason why you were in church, which was supposed to be a spiritual communion. But it was never about that. It became about the uniform you had on. And if you went into that's in a Jehovah's Witness church, which is, in my opinion, extremely conservative. But then when you go into, say, for instance, a Baptist, Apostolic, Holiness church, then it's a competition of whose uniform is better than whose.
And I think it evolved into that. I don't think that's how it started off. I definitely think it evolved into that.
It may not have.
But make it your own, though. Like,
but I think that's what young people are doing. I think that they're making they're doing them, is how they would say it. They're doing them. They're expressing themselves the way that they feel. So if they show up at the funeral in their street garb, they're showing up at the funeral because that's their way of paying homage. But they don't necessarily have to dress up to do that. And I think that that's okay. I think that in terms of, as artists, it's good to have, and I hear what you're saying. It's good to have a standard. It's good to have a foundation.
Like it's how I have chosen to dress, but it's also, and I don't mind, like, one of my cousins was killed, a younger cousin was killed, and most of the people showed up with like a shirt with his picture on it. And I didn't find that out of the blue because I saw that slowly getting to that point. But it's I don't want to.
So now I will say this: as an artist, and if you are expressing yourself, you have to be mindful of what attention it does draw.
Right.
So, for instance, if you come to a funeral and you have on a halter top and some what is that, hoochie daddy shorts on, or hoochie mama shorts on, then you're responsible for the attention it attracts, be it good or bad. That's the thing. Even with art, I feel like if you're going to be an artist and you're going to be, for instance, your type of music you're going to play is, P Valley strip club music. You have to be okay with the art, the attention you're going to attract based off of the art you're presenting. And I think that that's and so when you were talking about confidence, even with the jewelry making, as an artist, you have to have integrity with your art to stand by it when people are going to slay it, because you're going to get an equal amount of attention. You're going to get just as much good attention. You're going to get just as much negative attention as you're going to get good attention. And you could do everything. Look at Beyonce. I think she's an excellent entertainer. And every time she puts something out there, it's just as many people saying that her shit sucks as it is people that like me that's saying, okay, she's doing her thing. You get what I mean?
Right.
And so I feel like when you are dressing up or when you are presenting yourself, you have to have the integrity and the confidence to stand by what you're doing. And I think that what happens is that for me, a lot of young people, a lot of older people don't stand by their presentation. So and sometimes their presentation is a contradiction. I've seen that a lot where you have this individual and they look pristine, they have all of this stuff together, but they don't really have anything together. So it looks like and I think for me, I tend to operate on the mindset of I don't like to judge the book by the cover. I like to judge the content. And so I feel like a lot of young people present their content. Like on the flip side, I think sometimes they misrepresent themselves. So they dress these ways, and that's not actually not who they are. But I think that's what we've struggled with all our life is identity. Who are we? You know, and in that effort to try to find who we are, we're going to go through these different stages of presentation. So the person that you may see may not be the person that you see much later in life. You know, I mean, when I was growing up, this is not how I presented myself, you know, when I was growing up. This is who I am now. And as I get older, it's going to evolve again. But the reason I am this way is because at the statement that I'm making in this era is I am going to be me as much as possible. And I'm okay with my mode of expression.
But what I hear you saying and matching it to my point, I just think that there's a lack of mentorship. So you have people coming into people's lives after they've started making decisions that may not be good or bad or whatever, but you have people coming in as spectators and not as mentors, making comments about things. Like for me, I have a certain way about myself only, and it's mainly based off how I was raised. You know, having a great grandmother to go in her room wasn't the norm for many people. Maybe a grandmother, but not a great grandmother. So that's another layer of wisdom that you get and patience that I've learned. Like I'm not an overreactive person because I learned how to sit down and shut up. And it wasn't disrespectful to me as it is to people nowadays. Troy and I was having a conversation the other day, and he made a statement. Like he said, at his level of experience, he's able to speak about what he does and how he does it. But it's always a conflict, and I know I'm a part of the conflict when you have a young person that's been doing it for themselves and they have not had the mentorship. And it becomes a collision course when they're come across somebody who has the wisdom and the experience and they're willing to mentor. So it becomes like two people butting heads because you can't tell me nothing. Ain't nobody been helping me this whole time. Ain't nobody I've been doing it for myself. And I've had that same thought process in my mind. But because I'm still a patient person, because of my experience, I still know how to listen. And it's just,
I think that with mentorship, sometimes this is where it gets a little tricky and it gets a little gray because sometimes mentoring can be oppressive in a sense because you're teaching from your experiences and from your
explain to me the oppressive part though.
So what I'm saying is this. For instance, if my grandmother had an issue with me interacting with white people. So but even though she was a domestic and she worked for white people. So in my generation, I went to school with white people. I befriended them. I had a different interaction. In her generation, she didn't. So the way she taught was based off of her experiences. And I feel like what happens is that when we are mentoring or when we are teaching, we have to be very careful that we're not teaching biases. And I think that if you are going to mentor, you have to mentor from a position where you're unbiased, where you're open to understanding where the person you're mentoring, you're taking into consideration the things that they've experienced or the things they're upbringing, because they may have.
What happened was, and the why it is like that now, I think because I was taught to question, and not simply if you say something to me, why. But I was taught how to question adults when it was something I didn't understand.
But see, that in my generation was not something you did. When an adult said something to you, you listened, you didn't question them. And even if it was something that in your heart of hearts, you was like, I don't believe in this or I don't agree with this, because they were an adult, you didn't challenge that.
But see, the problem is you jumped to a challenge. So me questioning something wasn't a challenge. It was for clarity and understanding. So the elder that I grew up in the house with was very open to me asking questions. But it's a thing of
my point exactly.
We don't go and I understood that. But we don't, as individuals, especially the younger generations, we don't go any deeper than the surface because we're too lazy. Many of us are too lazy to even go beyond that, because there's a reason your grandmother did not want you around white people, because she knew who they were. White people didn't change from her generation to that generation. Your access and your opportunities changed, but white people stayed the same.
And that may be the case, but that may be the case. Mm-hmm. But the fact is that my access to them changed the dynamic.
The white people, it changed your dynamic.
It changed. It's the same as when they did when we had access to successful Black people in our communities. Mm-hmm. So what happens is it changed the way we interacted, and it changed the way that we perceived and how we navigated things. And so what I'm saying is this: when you were saying you were saying that with your parents and your grandparents, they allowed you to question things. That wasn't the case during my generation. You didn't question an adult, even if you felt like the adult was wrong. And that's the reason why a lot of times there was that resentment, because it was like, look, I know in my gut this was something that I didn't agree with, but I had to do it because that was the rule for us then. I think with the generations as they progress, they kind of challenged those social norms and said, wait a minute, what makes this right? Why do we have to?
But that's not good. That's what you should do. And my problem is, one, there were adults that did not allow you to question them, but it's how you do it. And that's my problem with these generations now. It's how you're doing things. It's how they're doing things.
I agree that it's how, but what I'm saying to you is that wasn't allowed.
And I get that, but it has grown into young people feeling as though they can just erase our history and erase who they were and erase how they were. Even that statement of I'm not my grandmother, or I'm not, when speaking about slavery or racial injustice or anything. And to me, it's a slap in the face of all the work that has been done, all the sacrifice that have been made. And one of the problems is mentorship has been taken out of schools and be replaced with a very toxic form of mentorship.
As I think the reason why they're that way. I think the reason why they're that way is because of their experience with these individuals that they're supposed to look up to and they're supposed to gain guidance from. And I believe that, again, it's unfortunate that there were a lot of adults that didn't know how to be adults because there wasn't anyone that was teaching them how to be an adult. And the adults that they were teaching, and then think about it, sometimes the adults that was doing the teaching was only teaching, they were teaching negative, toxic behavior based off of their experiences. So
and that's my point. Like that's
part of the rebellion. A part of the rebellion is to break that cycle. Again, like you were saying, you were allowed to ask questions. Well, a part of my rebellion was I dared to do my own thing because I wasn't going to conform any longer. So I broke away from the religious dogma that we was used to, go pray to Jesus and make everything go right. Well, no, it wasn't making everything go right, but that's what I see in this younger generation is that they're breaking away.
Like people are taking things the wrong way. And that it bothers me because even the way we report on information, it just feels like you're not even putting your cognitive skills together and understanding what you're watching or what you're seeing. And it is alarming to me because it's like we don't have any what did they call it? Context clues, or when you read something, comprehension. Like our comprehension of things people say has gotten so skewed because I no longer listen to what you said. I'm listening to how I feel, or how or I take bits and pieces of what you say and I create a narrative of what I think you're saying. You're not even hearing what I'm saying anymore. Because the same thing that you said about white people. My grandmother was very ignorant. Her and her siblings were very ignorant in terms of who white people were. But I can't even, and I say ignorant because some of the information that they gave me, it wouldn't have been safe for me to go to white schools with that attitude. I learned how to listen and hear people and just have a calmness about things. Now, I still question things, but the way I see young people questioning things today is beyond disrespectful because you're not even hearing, and I understand why that is happening, but there has to be some type of consciousness that happens of like, well, maybe I should just listen. Because the information that I'm getting is from a certain perspective.
But I think that's as we as adults, we failed in a sense where we're saying we want you to listen to us, but are we actually listening to them? And I think that's the biggest issue is that when
but you have to know something in order to question it.
Well, no, but the fact is that your perspective and your perception of things is based on where you are, where you're standing. But if you're from the bottom looking up, the way things look is completely different from the top looking down. And so I think and when you're in a position of power, as we are as adults, we tend to look at things from our own mindset, but we don't really understand how it is that they're seeing things. And I think the fact is that many of the times when you actually sit with a young person and you have a conversation with them, you'll hear that they do want guidance, but they want guidance from someone that will actually listen to where they are. Actually listen to some of the things that I'm going through, understand why I'm this way, as opposed to just prejudging me and thinking I'm just oppositional. Young people they're not inherently bad individuals. They're not. They're taught that. They learn through observation. They learn through what you teach them in school. They learn through their experiences. And so what happens is we don't know a lot of the things that they have to endure once they leave our vision, our sight.
But that's a misconception because as two adults, we know now as adults, things that our parents said to us, it makes sense now.
Some. But some of the stuff that you and I experienced, they didn't experience. Some of the stuff that we've experienced, they will probably be like, well, what the hell? Because and it's crazy because that's the exact same thing these young people are experiencing, especially when this generation.
you said it earlier. Like there's been this, and I don't know where it started. And I think it was from the beginning of time where, children started raising children. And teen pregnancy is not a new thing, but I think where it is now, there's a lack of support when a teen does get pregnant, or
Because
even when an adult is pregnant.
Because even in our generation, when you were pregnant, having a baby was a form of punishment. But what that looks like children growing up in households where they're abused or neglected, where they are not getting that guidance because the parent that had them didn't want them. They didn't want them, and the grandmother didn't want them. And so they grow up and they're resenting these adults down that are now saying, well, I'm your mother or I'm your grandmother. You listen to what I'm saying, but you raised me to feel as though I was nobody, that you didn't want me.
But I hear that and I get the misinformation and miscommunication from those scenarios, but I do not think, and I personally don't feel that's the majority. I think we have a lot of, and only because I'm seeing them, and I'm seeing them from a different perspective that you may be seeing them. I'm seeing a lot of young people that without even knowing anything, you're questioning. Without knowing anything, without being taught something, you're already on the defense. And I get where that's coming from.
Where they're coming from?
It's a trickling down because I can't give you as a parent, I can't give you anything as a parent or adult in general. I can't give you something that I've never been given.
I believe, so my interpretation of that is that that's the adults in their life because they're only going to do what they've seen done. So if they see someone, if you have a young person that's cussing you out, that's because in the house, that's how they respond to stuff. That's how they communicate. If you have a young person that's always questioning authority, then you're going to have someone that's going to, whenever you say, don't do this, no, fuck you. I'm going to do what I say, this, that, and the other. Who are you? You ain't my mother. You ain't my father. That's because that's what they've been taught. That and so I don't blame the young person. I look at the adults in their life.
Because that's my point in this. The lack of mentorship has caused generations, the last, I say 2 or 3 generations, because I believe my generation, and I'm not saying mentorship is just gone, but the mentorship that has been replaced by is very angry and very pushy and arrogant. And
I think they are being mentored. They're just not being mentored in I would say a healthy and
right. And that's what I'm saying. To me, it's not like mentorship has disappeared, but it's been replaced with a form of mentorship that is one, like you have school systems that are not organized, yet they are pushing for their students to be organized. They're not on time. They're not prompt. They're not remembering facts, but they're pushing their children in the same sentence. That just happened to me this summer. I watched a whole program try to give, and it with a good intention, but you wasn't on board. You wasn't consistent. You wasn't reliable, but you're forcing these children who have workspace and, are put into these workspaces, and you're wondering why they want to leave early, or they feel like they should get paid for not doing their work because they see you getting paid for not doing their work. So why wouldn't I feel like, and that's what I feel like has been replaced by. Or you have these, especially for young men, you have these organizations when they're young, making it about being a man or dressing a certain way will make you be a man, but you haven't shown them how to be little boys yet. And you're trying to get them to a space of being a man and making man decisions, and you haven't shored their youthful foundations up. So that
I think that's the biggest issue is that being a youth isn't about, I think being a youth is about learning the world around you in an unoppressed environment where you're able to be imaginative, where you're able to explore, and the adults in your life are there to supply you with some guidance and some wisdom as to why the fire burns. but why is it pretty when it glows? You get what I mean? We don't provide them with that. And I think what we do is don't touch it because I said so, or don't do this because I said so, or
and that's what they're getting before. And when individuals like ourselves introduce ourselves into their world, they don't know how to take people from that creative perspective or from a nurturing perspective. They don't know how to receive that.
Also, I mean, because they may see it as a threat. And I'm perceived as a threat. If you see me with blue eyeshadow and blue and yellow eyeshadow on, the first thing they're going to think of is pedophilia. You trying to indoctrinate my child into being gay. They're not going to think artist. They're not going to think expression. They're not going to think any of those things. They're going to think
they don't have those things themselves. They're void of those things themselves.
And they may not, and they're not that advanced to see beyond that scope. You get what I mean? That they're used to. So, and it sometimes it challenges them because the assumption is that that's what I'm doing. In reality, no, I'm being me. But we teach individuals to be collective. We teach them how to be like androids, carbon copies of one another. But the funny thing is that they told in my generation, they wanted you to be independent. They wanted you to be your own self, but it was a contradiction because even though they said they're to be you, they always had you in a uniform. They always had you learning the same thing. They always had you answering on cue. So that was a contradiction. So for me, I think that it is exposing them to as much as possible without damaging them or trying to corrupt them or trying to sway what they're going to do, but giving them options.
Yeah.
And that's what, as adults, we didn't provide them with options. We gave them what we had. And unfortunately,
as somebody that's in front of even adults, I always lead with these are just options because I understand where people are coming from and being barked at all day. And it becomes noise. It becomes like loud noise to people to be instructed or be guided the way that they're doing it now, because everything is preventative. I really, this topic was really, out of closing ceremony that we did with the youth workers this summer, and all the people that went up and spoke. And I really wasn't going to say anything from my program other than, the closing remarks. But I saw all the adults getting up there doing the scare tactics, telling them not to use drugs and not to, be promiscuous and all the scare tactics. And I being the last person that came up, my first statement was, well, they've told you what not to do. I'm only here to show you what you can do. And some of the adults were a little teed off at me, because I didn't give them that hell and brimstone type of conversation. Right. And it's only because I was that child before. And I remember somebody having those types of conversations with me. And it's like, well, what do I do then? How do I perform? How do I matriculate into adulthood? How do I make better choices? How do I focus? How do I XYZ? And none of that being given.
In terms of behaviors, it actually gets the opposite reaction. Yeah. I remember growing up, and again, in a conservative household with a lot of rules and education, and I couldn't wait to get a certain age to do everything that they said not to do. I remember as soon as I got into high school,
curiosity blossomed.
The first thing I wanted to do was get drunk, have sex, smoke weed. I wanted to do all of the things that was no. Because I wanted to understand why were they saying no to stuff that I saw them doing. What was the difference between me doing it and them doing it?
And that's the part for the young person. That's the part for me that was so obvious. It was so, this is why, because this nigga can't keep a job. That's why he's telling me not to get high. Like, I just was able to.
But see, I didn't grow up with that narrative. The people that were getting high, they had jobs. It wasn't that they weren't sitting out on a corner nodding off. No, in my generation, you could be addicted to heroin and still be a doctor.
But
You
but
could,
see, the youthful part of me will be, well, why do you need to do that?
but see, again, my thing was, so the way that I interpreted it was, are you doing that was fun. That's adult fun. And what we were doing was
Yeah, I was
children
never that.
fun.
Yeah, I was never given that.
Different era, a completely different era. I remember when
Because
I was
I had, I think people saw in me a natural curiosity,
Mhm.
but mine was more on the inquisitive side, not necessarily like, "Ooh, I want to try that dope." But I was always given like the reality of what was happening with that person. And I would
So
see that I didn't have any uncles that owned anything or, had their own. And I would realize, well, they're using drugs, they're not holding down jobs, don't do drugs.
mhm. Well,
Like,
the funny thing for me, I think, and it has everything to properly to do with the fact that I think that I was always innately a scientist at heart, is that I always wanted to test the theories. So for me, I grew up with two parents that both struggled with addiction. But
mhm.
to me, I wanted to know what the experience was. So I didn't do what they did, but I did experience with substance use. And I got to feel I now have a reference point where I could say, this is what I experienced when I did it. So when I'm talking to young people, I can understand, oh, I can see why it would be appealing to you. But have you ever considered this? Because I do
Yeah.
have a reference points. I think a lot of times when it comes to young people, they're talking to adults with no real reference point in their life.
Mhm.
And so, or it's outdated. So the stuff that you're teaching me from doesn't even apply to this era.
Yeah.
And so you got to make it relevant. And I think that that's where we missed the mark is that for this generation, come on now, we weren't having half the stuff that they're doing out here. And I think a part of that is, it's an advancement. This
Well,
generation is much more
also,
advanced.
so so I look at certain people like the Jay-Z's and the people like of that caliber who have
Mhm.
done things a certain way, gotten all this success, which is very appealing to young people, money, success, fame, and then you telling them not to do these things. So now they say, well, how do I get to that? So all the men that are just shimmying their junk over everywhere, all of the influencers that are painting pictures of success when it's really poverty. All of those things are based off of them watching someone do something this way and wanting that type of outcome for themselves.
And I think that I look at it like this. I feel like in a positive note, I think that many of them are capitalizing off of what we thought that they wouldn't. For instance, in my generation, men would never wear, they might have worn for sports, the hoochie daddy shorts and all of that stuff,
Yeah,
but
that's
they
not
really
even a
didn't,
new thing. That's
it's
that's
not.
they
Um,
soccer and lacrosse shorts that they
yeah,
wear.
exactly. So I believe that those are the things that um, people have figured out, how do I capitalize off of it? How do I make it work for me when there's nothing else? Okay. And I think even with the OnlyFans, I think that that was kind of like, you know what? When they were doing the whole porn and stuff like that, that was their way of saying, you know what? Let's create a place where we can market ourselves. YouTube, TikTok, and why do we have to why do we have to wait for someone to entertain us when we can go and we can make our own entertainment for ourselves? So I think that I think that this generation has, in my opinion, they're really intelligent. I just think their intelligence isn't the same as it doesn't align with what we were raised with.
It's not
So
long term. It's everything
it
is
can be.
survival. It feels like survival,
It
or
may
they're not
feel
thinking
like that,
beyond
but think
tomorrow.
of the stuff that we did. A lot of the things that we did may have looked like and felt like just survival, but we were able to build off of it. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And
but that's the thing. But now it's not, the foundation is so shallow. It's so shallow. Like we're telling our children, you don't need education. You don't need to learn anything.
But look at the education. Think about it. You go to school and you go into an environment where the person that's supposed to be teaching you don't know what the hell they're teaching. They have to learn the curriculum. You get what I mean? So it's like, so to me, you got to look at the reason why the system itself is jacked up. If we got to call it, blame something, blame the system.
Well, and I think for the most part, the reason, and not just educational, but people are jumping into things for the money and what it looks like to people. I know plenty of people who are dumb as doorknobs, who never wrote a paper in college, who are now professors.
Yeah.
And they got that way because somebody helped them or did it for them, and now they have the appearance of a professor or of a teacher.
And you got those same individuals that are in positions where they create the rules and the policies that govern the jobs that you do.
Mm-hmm.
You got those same individuals doing that. And so my thing is that, but when does it stop? It stops when someone dares to be different. It stops when someone goes against the grain. It stops when someone draws outside the box. And
I can't read this fucking screen, Bonnie.
Oh, what he said. So to me, that's just my opinion.
Mm-hmm. But I definitely get it. And my argument is definitely mentorship based. And it has to be at this point, because we're so far gone in a given circumstance of young people being totally rebellious and older people being so hands off, and it's so extreme. And there are a lot of people still in the fight in the middle on both sides. But for the greater majority of people, I think we are doomed. And these are going to be the same people that are, and we already see it. We have the people that are in my age group and younger that are telling everybody, go get an LLC. And that's the topic that we're going to talk about later this month at the Black to the Future event, sponsored by myself, Bashop Blue Jewelry, Shinye Wright of the Baltimore scene and the Black Arts District, where we bring you a monthly event where we talk about these types of topics. And Bonnie actually will be the presenter for this month's Black to the Future event, where he's talking about money matters. But that was a shameless plug. But I just see the extreme, and I'm seeing it more and more because I'm still with young people. And what was interesting, I haven't worked with high school students in a number of years. So seeing that they are no further today than they were when I was teaching in high school is scary to me. It's very scary.
I think that speaks to, again, their parents, what they value. I know that for me, it was nothing for a parent to go up and be a part of the school. It was nothing for you to see a parent in the cafeteria or walk in the hallways or coming into the classroom assistant.
Yeah,
that changed.
That was my mother. That was definitely my mother.
That changed. That was my mom. There was nothing, and and one of the things that was happening even then was that you saw an overrepresentation of moms, but not dads, because that was considered a mom's role, to be considered, to take care of the rearing of the children. And so part of that was making sure that they were doing what they had to do in school. And dad was the disciplinarian. After mom was the disciplinarian.
Yeah.
That's changed.
But it felt like it was starting to be built that way. I remember in middle school, I was in this, my middle school had this program called Rainbows. And Rainbows was specifically for young men. I went to an all-boys school, St. Ignatius, and it was specifically for young men who were being raised by single moms. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was the weirdest thing ever. But what ended up happening was because you were chopped up in your grade level, but most of the children out of this very small school were being raised by these single parents, and single meaning the other parent wasn't there, or for some reason was somewhere else, or whatever the scenario may be, but your
Right.
primary parent was on their own or without the other primary parent. And that it was just weird to me. And some of the subject matter was stuff that we were talking about, but they were asking us questions about and it probably was somebody's thesis statement or somebody's, graduate degree that we were doing, because I realized another program that I was in starting in second grade that matriculated with us was somebody's, I think his name was Richard Rowe. It was his doctoral statement, about and they were basically trying to see if you gave these resources to students. It was called Project Raise. If you gave these after school resources to children, would it help the retention rate, or would children come to school on time? Would they matriculate through school effectively? Would they graduate? Would they then go to college? And it was all a thesis statement, which I think we need to stop testing theories out and really try to help our children, because I think there's getting to a space where children are, it's just, it's different. And I'm different in that these children are getting more access to things and more opportunities with even less knowledge, comprehension, understanding, and guidance
I would
than
say
generations.
I would say that they're cutting out the middleman. I think the internet and their access to information removes the teachers, removes the adults. Because why do I have to listen to you when I can go and look it up myself?
Because that information is being brought to you by somebody else who don't know, who's just
that may be, or on the flip side, they may actually do know. So they're taking the risk, but they rather risk it than sit in front of someone who doesn't necessarily have their best interest, and you can feel it and see it. And I feel like when you go into the schools, I just don't feel the same vibe that I felt when I was growing up. I remember coming up in an environment where the teachers lived in the neighborhood with you. It was nothing for our teachers to walk us home. We were all latchkey children. But she, in her walk to her house, she was walking with the kids. She made sure that if she didn't have to do anything as far as the curriculum, she made sure the children, she would go to the corner, she would walk them up to one corner, and then she'd watch them go to their different houses down the street. And then later on that day, you'd see her walking around the corner, and it was nothing for us to help walk her home. But that doesn't happen anymore. And I think that that's the big issue for me, is that a lot of the things that you're talking about, and I absolutely do understand it, has shifted with the time. And it's unfortunate that the young people, for me, when I work with young people, I'm more open to hearing what their experience is, because then I'm able to understand what it is that they need, as opposed to what it is I want them to have. Because a lot of times you may see something and they don't see it, and you have to allow them to experience to see it. You have to allow them to go through whatever it is that they have to go through so that they can gain some information, rather than trying to do it for them. And I think that in the school system, the way that the system is set up, it isn't designed for this generation. It's designed for my generation, and it has to evolve. And unfortunately, we don't have individuals that are in positions where they are the administration.
A lot of them don't have children. That's one of the biggest problems. Or they don't have children that are in the same systems that they're teaching in.
Absolutely, I agree.
The parents who, and it's not.
And I think
that I should not send my children to X school, and I'm able to teach in this school to afford to be able to send them to that school. But it's still, it matters to me that the people who are decision makers, because the reason, especially with the teacher unions and the structures of schools, that happened because we had a couple teachers who thought they knew better than the community, than the other teachers that were there for the right reasons, and started making rules and convinced all the teachers that, hey, we need this system that protects us. And I'm not against unions, but I'm against organizations that overlook the reason we're all here.
And it may not have, and I will say this, and they may not have any of the representation there at the table when they're doing the decision making. And
Right.
that's the big thing,
Right.
is that, a lot of the policies that we are abiding by and don't actually have any individual that they're supposed to be serving there when they're making the decision. For instance, they about to go up on BG&E. Well, what they going? Who going to pay for that? The school system. They about to revamp some stuff with them. But where are the parents at? Where are the students? Where are the young people that have to go into these schools in this coming September? Where's their voice? And the representation. Don't get, and this is a big thing for me, is don't get the kid that makes 90s all the time to come speak for the other children. No.
Well, that's how they've always done it.
Exactly.
But now
And
they
that's
don't
the wrong
even
way.
do that. They're not even doing that. They're looking at numbers and projections and scientific hypotheses. That, like, they're not even looking at real people anymore. They're looking at computer screens and algorithms now. And that is scary to me, that that's what we're being raised in, because I see not just young people, I see a lot of adults that have been skipped over because of that transition into this new world that we're in. And I don't think it's the school.
Is it really new?
It is very much so new, because I can tell when it started happening, because as an adult, when I started teaching, being a teaching artist, I could see the changes starting to happen right before my eyes. Then now those changes started a little bit while I was still in school, but I could see it physically from a perspective of, this ain't what the school I went to, or what was valued.
I think it's more so to do with the knowledge that you were privy to. Because the reality is that, especially people of color, we've always been guinea pigs, and unfortunately, I mean, even so I don't think, and I think the educational system was just a big research project. It was never meant to do the things that we assumed it was meant to do. And that's where
that's the biggest
it was never
problem.
meant to do that. So I think that the assumption was that it was meant to, advance you and educate you. That was the illusion they wanted you to believe. But more so than anything, it was just meant to house you there while people needed to go to work. So,
and that's one of the reasons that I push a lot of my parents to, you have to get up. Like, this is daycare, free daycare. And that's why it's being done. Now everybody's able to bring in their idea of, this thought or this scientific experiment, because nobody is saying anything. And nobody is really focusing on what is really necessary. And even within our communities, going back to what the topic is today, and I'm specifically thinking about young Black men and how our needs are always overlooked. And I was talking to a young person like a couple weeks ago, and the things that they were saying, it was weird to me, because the clarity in young Black men don't have a voice. We were speaking about the squeegee boy, and we don't have a voice. So when we do things and it's against what the norm is, or what the law is, or what the morality laws are, it's blown out of proportion. But you put me into, you've backed me into a corner where I've had to learn to survive and to thrive in that survival, that when something happens, like I shoot somebody who was trying to attack me with a bat, I look like the bad guy. and specifically for the young Black boys, and not saying anybody else is not important or significant, but it really is irritating, one, but mostly it is scary to me because I just feel like we're in a space where it's everybody for themselves, and people are comfortable with that. People are
I,
comfortable with part of your family just not having it at all, and you having the means, and you like, well, I gotta make sure I'm good. Not even your children or your parents or your siblings, but me.
but I think that we you got to take into consider the factors that make people that way, and I think that it's unfortunate. It's a lot of there are different variables. There are different factors that impact individuals and that drive their behavior. So I'm just saying, for me, um, for those young people, me working with young people, me working with individuals that have been struggling with substance use, me working with people that have been struggling with HIV or homelessness, me getting the opportunity to work with the people of different populations. I've had an opportunity to hear, to listen to their stories. I think it's very important to listen to everyone's story so that you can get an understanding of some of the things that they've experienced, because then you'll know why they behave the way that they do.
Right.
And
Because I was
for
about to say
me,
those things are all those conditions are symptoms of a bigger problem.
exactly. But the thing is that but that bigger problem is one that we've been placed in, and we've never had any real control over. It's just been an illusion that we had a say. It's been an illusion that our vote matters. It's been an illusion of a lot of things. And I think that what we're finding is that with young people, they're saying we see through the illusion. We see through the bullshit. And the funny thing is that I can hear what they're saying because I understand their frustration, because when I was young, I saw the same thing. And it upset me when you had the ability to make a change, but you didn't make a change because you were comfortable. And I think that a lot of people in positions, especially people of color, get in positions where they can make a change, but they get comfortable and they then say, you know what, I'm okay. I'm okay. So when you have the Jay-Z's who said, I want to struggle to get out of the hood. I'm doing this music so I can get better for me and give back. And once they get to a place where they're comfortable, that narrative changes.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
And
and
it's that the idea, and what is the contradiction to me? So now you remove yourself from that culture that got you to where you are, and now you're telling young people don't do that, but you're not putting out a blueprint, or you're not giving them options to how to get it successfully because you don't know how to do it
and
other than
I'm
how you did it.
and I'm gonna say something because I don't. I think artists are sometimes put in a position where they are saying, especially music artists, rappers, and they're why haven't you given back? But there are just as many individuals that are architects, that are in a divine nine, that are in these fraternal organizations that can impact change, that have just as much pull and just as much reach. But the reality is that they're comfortable. And so, the reality is that so I don't want to be unfair and say it's just these group of this individuals that no, it's across the
Well,
board.
I
And
picked people who had a bigger voice, but
but
it
the
definitely
assumption is
that
that
on a local
because we
level as
see
well.
them, the assumption is because we see them, they have a bigger voice. That doesn't necessarily mean the case, because there are a lot of people whose voice carries much weight, but we don't see them. But behind the scenes, their voices is
Mhm,
the voice that's being heard. And I think it's those individuals that we kind of have to hold to the fire. And
mhm.
that's what my biggest concern is that a lot of the stuff that we know, or we think we don't know. And that's the biggest issue, is how do you how do you gain knowledge without experiencing?
It's just is and I see it on all different perspectives, but as somebody who uh chooses to still be in the school system and to be around children in the capacity that I am, it's upsetting to me that I still have people who continue to throw monkey wrenches into the mix by
You're gonna
not
get that.
showing up, by the ones that do show up going against the grain, or not going against the grain, but creating more chaos or
But you know
making the
what?
problem worse.
And I think what happens is that um, people who really are positive influences and who really want to do something, they get so frustrated and they burn out easily. So they come in and they don't have the stamina to endure all of the resistance, because you are the minority.
Well,
When
and
you
for
come,
those people, I say leave, because what you're doing is
but
you're planting seeds of doubt and mistrust and turmoil in the minds of not only young people, but people who are eager to get out there and do stuff. Well,
what
you
I'm
know what? That's just how it is. That's the school system. You got to get used to it. Da 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 da. And but or they're speaking to children in a very toxic way. And I
But if
just
there's more of them than it is of, if it's a system that is designed to be comforting to them and you
right.
are outnumbered, you're going to burn out faster than that, because they can feed off of that energy. You
And that's
can't
been
feed
my
off of.
experience. That's definitely been my experience, because
But I
it's
will,
just a frustrating space to be in, to see where the problems are. And you see children often feeding off of those types of individuals in ways that is very contradictory in many
but
cases,
that's
because
what
it's just
that's why
not
you have to
healthy.
kind of infiltrate the base. So the reality is that sometimes you have to work your way into a position where you can affect change the way that you need to, where your
Mhm.
voice carries that weight. Sometimes what happens is if you screaming from the top to up, they're not going to listen, because you got so far up that you got to yell. But when you get to the position where you at the top with them, then it's an equal playing field. You can say what you need to say directly to them.
There's many people who could definitely make a change in those spaces that are choosing not to, because those people who are there were once where they were, and they
Or
just see how it changes people.
or for me, and I'm just speaking of me, um, you're going to be too real for them. You know what I mean? So my thing is, there are individuals that get in positions and stuff, and because they are the person that they are and the way that they're going to deliver, it's not going to be received, and you're just going to be seen as an antagonistic individual. And so
Mhm.
it's learning how to play the game. And if you're not the type of person who wants to play any games, you bow out and you say, you know what, I don't even want to play that. I don't even want to be in the mix of that.
And
So there are
that's what a lot
individuals.
of people have chosen to do, which is
Yeah,
very unfortunate. But
yeah.
that formula I've seen that formula play out, because now a lot of people are just choosing, you know what? I'm tired of bucking the system, and the people in power see what I'm doing, see what needs to be done, and are choosing to do status quo. And
Yeah.
I think, specifically speaking in this matter, it is harming our young people. Something so that's seemingly so insignificant as learning how to tie a tie matters so much, but we focus on what brand the tie is, who made the tie, how I can sell more ties, versus just simply teaching somebody how to tie a tie. Like, and the impact that can then have over, because you may have more young people that are a more suit and tie individual. I know I'm not a suit and tie person. I used to be, but it just, I didn't see the impact of it. One,
And
I didn't see
also,
a lot of people that looked like me in it,
and
or
I
I
think
saw the people who wore them not being their full self, and I didn't want
also,
to.
why is this a status symbol? You know, why is it so significant? And I think and it's not to say that, again, like I said,
It's the moment. It's the moment. It's the experience.
it,
It has nothing to
it
do with the
may
tie.
it may be, but what some of the significant moment may not be tie to tie. It may be just the fact that my father decided to come up to school just to see how I was doing. You know what I mean?
That's
so
it.
So I think that I think the young people may not hold it in such a high regard as we did when we were growing up, because a lot of the things that we held in high regard isn't as substantial as it was when I was growing up. Your generation is completely different from mine. So again,
man, I get it.
I mean, and yes, and the funny thing about it is, when people say that, I always sit back and I say thank you, because I don't see that as a slur or anything. I see it actually as a compliment, because the reality is that my generation wasn't supposed to live as long as I did. So when someone say you old, I'm like, yes, thank goodness, because I saw most of my people die, you know, and they were doing. And so for me, when someone says you old, I'm like, and I can't wait to get to 90, because I'm gonna still be the same damn Baltimore's favorite gay aunt. And I'm gonna still be have raw humor, and I'm gonna still cuss, and I'm gonna still be frisky, and I'm gonna still like my men with some stamina and virility to them.
You can't go one day. And on that note, this has been the Artist Exchange Radio Show. Please follow us on social media, the Artist Exchange on Facebook and Instagram. Really, that's it. I'm starting to pick up those.
Yay!
I'm not swinging my penis or none of those dances. I'm just putting out the content. Please, you would only wish.
No, I would not wish.
You would.
I do not. I like my vision.
I've had a couple of invitations. You don't gotta want it. Our Joe likes it. Our Joe likes it.
Who likes it?
Our Joe likes it.
Yeah, I don't know that person.
Oh, well.
I have no clue who that individual is.
Well, because you don't know that person, that's why.
But this has been a wonderful experience on the Cocktail Social.
First of all, don't let this man keep going. Don't let him keep on. It's the Cocktail Social is coming back soon.
This has been a wonderful experience.
Eventually. But thank you to everybody that's viewing, that's listening. Please share, please subscribe to Big Exposed Radio. If you're looking for a show, this is your home. Email us at info@bigexposedradio.com. Don't forget, Baltimore Fashion Week, August the 15th. Come see me.
And me. I'll be there.
That's what he's saying. Peace out, people.
Okay.